Hi, James. I have 3 stories to tell you, and these are about animals. The first one is about my experiment with rabbits. So when I was growing up, I was in a club that was called 4-H, and 4-H was where we learned about raising animals, about sewing, about cooking, about doing things, and then we would take our animals to the fair to show them. So I was in 4-H for many years, for for 13 years, and I was president of the 4-H club. And one year I convinced my dad to let me try something different. I wanted to try to raise rabbits. So a neighbor of ours had a couple of cages, and I had something to keep them in. So we got 3 rabbits, and we put them in separate cages, all next to each other. And I thought they were great. They were my 4-H project, and I learned how to take care of them and groom them and feed them. And I had to clean their cages every day. Well, not too long after getting the rabbits, I noticed that one of them was getting kind of fat and started pulling her fur out. And I thought something was really wrong, but then I realized this is what rabbits do when they're making a nest, when they're going to have a baby. So she had a litter of babies, and they were so tiny and so cute, but after a while the rabbits became a problem because my original 3 rabbits in about 4 months turned into 42 rabbits. I showed several of them at the fair, but it was obvious I wasn't going to be able to keep rabbits, so I had to get rid of them. So that was a story about the rabbits. Yeah, that was funny. Okay, then I had a pet cow. I grew up on a farm, and we had cows, and even though I often helped feed them just about every day, I did not milk them. But I loved being around them, and I liked their big brown eyes, and they were very gentle. So one of my first 4-H projects was to raise a dairy cow, and I gave the name Baby to my calf, and I raised her very lovingly and carefully. And the first year I took her to the fair, and she was just a young calf, and I brushed her and dragged her into the show ring, and she did very well, even though I had to practically drag her around the show ring. By the second year, she was ready to go. She had gotten used to me. We had been training daily. I would put a halter on my cow's head, and I would lead her around, just kind of like a dog. In the fair, I actually slept in the barn with her. She was my pillow. And the day of the contest at the fair, I had to bathe her, had to wash her, brush her. We would braid their tails and then comb it out to make them look real fluffy. I even trimmed little hairs off her ears, so she looked perfect. And we went into the show ring, and Baby behaved perfectly, and I actually won the showmanship contest, and she became the grand champion cow, and I was very proud of her that year. So that's my story about Baby the cow. And then finally, I have a story about a cat. Part of growing up on a farm was you would have cats that were just kind of wild, and they'd run around the barn. And they were actually good in the barn because they would catch mice so that mice didn't become crazy in the barn. But they were never allowed into our house. But one day when I was older, I was living at home, and in those days we had to take our trash to a dump. It was a public dump, and everybody drove their trash to this dump and would put it there. And one day I was taking the trash to the dump, and somebody had dumped their cute little kitten out. It was very sad, but I really wanted to have that cat, and I begged my mom and dad, if I could have the cat, and we named it Dumpy because we found it at the dump. So I took it home and I begged my mom to please let me keep it in my room. And she agreed, surprisingly, as long as the cat stayed in my room and I took care of it totally. So that's what I did. And Dumpy was a very unusual cat. He learned to fetch like a dog. So I could throw something and he would bring it back to me. And then I moved out on my own into my own apartment and I took Dumpy with me. And Dumpy was not happy about the move. She hid under the bed, didn't come out for like 3 days. And then I had a visitor who came to visit me, and they were standing in the doorway, and Dumpy ran out the door, and I never saw him again until almost a year later. Your grandpa and I, it was our wedding day. We were getting married. We were coming out of the church. I was in my wedding gown. Grandpa was in his suit, and there was Dumpy. He was standing there, and he let me pet him, and he acted like he remembered who I was, but then he took off again to wherever he had made his new home. And I thought that was pretty cool that Dumpy came to tell me goodbye on my wedding day. So, that's kind of a story about Dumpy and a cat and pets. All right. Love you.